Microsoft. I recently moved back about 2 years ago to work remotely for Microsoft, and I spend most of my day on GitHub, which is lucky me. Today I'm going to be talking about Visual Studio productivity. Now, this is going to be mostly spent in VS, but feel free to stop me at any time. You got questions, you want to branch off somewhere else, let's do that. Let's go. So, 15.8 released last week. Who updated? Anyone? Quite a few. Who's using earlier versions? One? Okay. Yep. Okay, that's better than Adelaide was. Yeah.
Do you use VS Code?
Oh, VS Code? Who uses VS Code? Oh, yep. VS Code rocks. Yep. So I'm going to be showing a bunch of new productivity features that we've added in 2017, right up to 15.8, from RTM onwards. Okay, so one of the, when we started 2017, we started talking. The colours are a bit off, but we started talking to a bunch of devs about productivity. Who can guess as to what the number one thing that they were missing, or the thing that bothered them? Performance. So we've been working on a bunch of performance over the last few updates. We made a bunch of changes to solution load, unload, branch switching, build, test discovery, and so forth. Here's a quick video of some of the perf changes we made since 15.7. So what we have, didn't play. It's not going to play. Nope. Okay, let's move on. What you would have seen here is that this is a large solution, about 160 odd projects, about 1 million lines of code. It's the Roslyn solution. In 15.0, it takes upwards of 2 or 3 minutes to load. In 15.7, it takes 15.5 seconds. So we've made quite a few inroads on perf for solution load. So here I have VS Preview. I'm going to open up this project that I've got. This is something I work on called Audio Switcher, just a personal project. One of the first things you might have noticed in the corner here is that Test Explorer instantly loaded the tests. We've made huge improvements to Discovery perf. We rewrote Discovery, so we started using the power of Roslyn. So you can, say, duplicate a test, like so, and we'll pick it up automatically. So previously, this would have required you to build the whole solution before we picked it up. And while I'm here, I'm going to show you one of the new shortcuts we added, which was duplicate selection. So you can Ctrl+EV, which does a little duplicate. This avoids you overriding the copy buffer, like so. You can do Ctrl+EV like so, and so forth. And you can it doesn't overwrite yet what you just copied. Okay, if we go to the Test Explorer here, in 15.7 we added this new test hierarchy view. So if I click that, this gives you a more logical view of the solution, from project to namespace to class to members and so forth, which was a highly requested feature. So why don't I run the tests? So as I run the tests, you'll notice we made a couple of slight changes, which was we added some new icons to kind of better and kick them in at a better time, so that you can kind of see what's going on a little bit better. Okay, like so. So while that's running, okay, let's just recap what we just saw. So we saw Test Explorer improvements. We did faster discovery in 15.6. We rewrote it. Project hierarchy view, which gives you a nice, better view, logical view of your tests. And then we updated the pending and the progress icons to kind of give you a better indication of what's going on while we're running the tests. Also quickly showed you duplicate line selection. Okay, so let's go back to VS. Okay, so we've got some failed tests here. So why don't we dig into some of the test failures? So if I have a look down here, what I've got is that I've got a test here that looks like it's reading some JSON settings service. I'm trying to read this show disabled devices property. It looks like there's some exception going on here. Why don't we just plug into here? So step in. Now this is going to get a breakpoint. I'm going to use my normal shortcuts, which is F11 to step in, F10 to step over, like so. Now I can see what, if I remember correctly, what I saw in the stack, this method was there. This is JSON.NET. Now usually, we don't have a lot of, if there's a bug inside JSON.NET, we don't have a lot of options as to look at the code, but we added some new features to kind of help with this. So first one is if I go to definition on this thing, I'll give you this little EULA prompt the first time you use it. And then what we do here is we grab the IL code and we decompile it back into C#. So this is the C# view of the DLL.
Is that using your internal libraries or?
No, we're using just some open source libraries.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Is it ILSpy?
Yep, that's fine. Okay, so now this is basically the IL just converted back to C#. We pull in the XML docs, as you can see here, but there's no comments and no if-defs and so forth. This is just literally what's in the binary. Now I can scroll down and I can say, hey, and I go to definition, and here we'll decompile string straight from mscalllib. And you can see how we've implemented a bunch of stuff. Now why don't we go back? Okay, so that's great, but why don't we take this a step further, and why don't I step in? So if I press F11, and now we've literally stepped inside the JSON.NET library here. And what we've done here is we're making use of a new feature called source link, which basically puts an association with the NuGet package with the GitHub source. So we grab the hash, we pull this source file down from GitHub, and this is exactly the source code as it is on GitHub. So if you can have a look here, you can see there's some if-defs, they're not represented in binaries. And we scroll down, we should see some comments, so forth. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now you can also, use your usual locals window, watch window, and all the usual hoo-ha. Now if I remember correctly, it was this line that, sorry, not that line, this line here that threw. Normally, I would set a breakpoint here. I want to run to it before I get into it, and unset it when I hit it. In in this RTM, what we added was this run execution to here. It's just this little, you just hover over the line, I click the line, and we'll just run the execution to that line. It's just a nice little helper to replace those temporary breakpoints that you usually set. Now why don't we F5 from here. Okay, so we hit an exception. Now, what we're inside the JSON.NET code here, and what he's doing is we can actually see what James was doing. He's parsing the property. He's seeing if the character is not a quote, either a double quote or a single quote, and if it's not a valid identifier char, then throw. Okay, so we kind of got a bit of understanding what's going on here. It's probably invalid input, so it's our fault that we're probably sending in valid input. So why don't we just summarize what we just saw there. We saw run to click, which is new in 15.0. Navigate to decompile sources, which is off by default. It's experimental feature that we've turned on in 15.7. You can turn it on in tools options. And then step into NuGet packages via source link. So source link, we added in 15.3, but JSON.NET package only added support for this in their recent build, which hasn't yet published on nougat.org. But you'll see a lot more Nougat packages just support this out of the box. Okay. All right.
Sorry, so the authors of the packages opt in to be a contributor to that?
Yeah, so the author of the package has basically set a few properties in their project, built the project, packed it, and it just automatically works.
Oh, so something's, in a nutshell, what's going on?
So what's happening is we're putting basically the Git hash from into the PDB, and now the PDB ships into the package, and then the debugger sees the PDB, reads the Git hash, knows.
Oh, the hash is the magic.
Yeah, there's a Git hash and a URL to basically pointing to GitHub. So it works with Bitbucket, works with your own, source control, VSTS. You can enable it for your own packages and so forth.
How would it work if I'll have the pointer to a private repository?
If you have access to that private repository, then it will prompt for credentials.
And will it fall back to ILSpy for the compilation?
No, we don't support debugging using ILSpy yet. It will be coming in the future, but right now, yeah. So it will. If I didn't have access to that, it basically used my GitHub credentials to download that thing. So if it was a private repository, then it would pop up the GitHub credential. You'd log in, you get a GitHub prompt, or the VSTS prompt, or whatever. Yeah. So okay. So we kind of looked into that, and it looked like we were giving it invalid input. Now, if I look at this input that I'm giving it here, I can kind of see what's going on. This is a verbatim string. I've made the assumption that I need to escape the quotes, but that's not how verbatim strings work. So what I want to do is I actually want to remove all these backslashes. So what I can do is I can manually do that for each one. It's kind of annoying. I can use box selection, which we've had for a long time. So if I hold down Alt and move the mouse, I can draw a box and then remove them all at once. That's kind of annoying on this corner here. There's not a real way of doing that. I can't just select that. Instead, what I can do is I can make use of the new multi-caret support that we added in 15.8. So I can highlight the backslash, like so, hold down Alt, Shift, and dot, and we'll go and find the next matching selection. So, like so, I can use comma to go back, dot. So now I've got carets there. One click, backslash, and we've got, and these are real carets, so I can type foobar, like so. Hey, you like that? Yep. Okay, so if you ever use VS Code, you'll see that we added the multi-caret support that they had. Okay, so that's cool.
Can you use the same shortcut? It's Control F2.
It's not the same shortcut, and you can change shortcuts in VS. I asked the editor guys, they actually changed the shortcut underneath me while I updated versions, and they changed the shortcut underneath me, which was kind of annoying. But yeah, the shortcut, yeah, you can change shortcuts, but we also can, we now provide a VS Code scheme, so you can actually choose the VS Code scheme, and we also provide a resharper scheme out of the box, so you can choose resharper. Okay, so that's cool, but what if I can do, what if I take this a step further? So if I know that there's no matching backslashes, I can hold down Alt, Control, Shift, and comma, select them all at once, and like so, and remove them all at once. So why don't we run this thing? Well, it's running.
Does that work within a selection? Like, could you have highlighted that and then That makes
So the matching, so the caret support works by matching the next selection. So if I highlight something, it will try and find the next matching selection of that thing. Okay, so that was the problem. So nice, all right, we got green. So why don't we recap what we just saw. We saw box selection, which we've had forever. Alt and click, you can draw a box. And to that, we've added the multi-caret editing and selection. Now the shortcuts, oh yeah, I didn't show that you can also manually add short things by Alt Control click, like so. So now the shortcuts take a little to get used to it. I forced myself to learn them, and now that I use them all the time. But you can also change those shortcuts if you want, as with all VS shortcuts. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So we've got this second test failure. Why don't we debug into this and figure out what's going on? Okay, so we're hitting a null ref. Now, what you'll see is that we changed this exception dialog, we rewrote this thing. This gives you a quick overview of, lets you change your exception settings quickly here. Or you can add conditions yourself if you want to break on different exceptions, or you don't want to break on different exceptions if they're expected. Another thing you might notice is that we now list the variable that was null. Hey. It was a lot of work. Required runtime changes. So now why don't we have a look what's going on. So we're null refing string here. Now if I look down at right, I can see what's going on. I have a if stream equals null, I have the normal null check. I'm just missing one on read. Okay. So why don't, to help me, if I go back to the test, you can see that I'm expecting argument null. So the check is just add the argument null check. So to help me, I'm going to turn on this thing called live unit testing. So live unit testing gives you runs your tests in the background and gives you a quick overview in the editor of the state of your tests and the lines of code that it hits. So you can see here we've got this little margin here. If I hover my mouse over here, we've got a tick. It says this line of here was hit by 6 tests, of which all passed. If I scroll up to this line here, it says this was covered by 0 tests. So this is something that we might want to write a unit test for. And then if I hover over here, we can see that this is covered by 7 tests, of which at least one failed. So if I click on the X, I can quickly see what test failed in mine, which is the same test that we had. Okay, so now this is gonna run tests as we make changes to the code. So if I hover over stream, now I could write my null check myself, or I can just use Roslyn, power of Roslyn to add it. Right. Does an automatic check. Now, as we've made these changes, you see that the tests have been automatically run in the background, picked up the changes automatically. I haven't even saved the file, and I can quickly see that the changes were picked up and that this fixed the test. Now, if I Control+KC to comment, just to see that this is not smoke and mirrors, you can see that it failed immediately, and undo it. And there's a little clock icon, I don't know if you can see it, that indicates that the tests are running.
Is that running all the tests or just the ones?
Okay, yes, good question. So this is running, and if you can see, you see that in Test Explorer we grey out tests that ran that didn't run in the last run.
Yeah.
You can see that the greyed out ones are the ones that we didn't run. So it detected that these 8 tests are affected by this line of code that I just changed, and so it only ran those. So it only runs the ones that are affected by the code that you changed. Okay, so All right, yep, so let's just quick recap on that. So we saw the exception holder, which we changed in 15.0, just to kind of make things a little simpler. We showed you just a quick refactoring that we added. We've got plenty more coming, and I'll show you more soon. Shows you live unit testing, which is an enterprise-only feature. And then I showed you comment and uncomment code, which is Ctrl+KC and Ctrl+KU. Question? No?
Can this no reference exception with variable that was no be enabled outside of Visual Studio? For example, some flag for already compiled apps?
Yes, yes. If PDB is present.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so, all right, okay, so the tests are passing. Why don't we commit these to kind of, make sure that we've got a known state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first select the thing in Solution Explorer. So Control +S, which automatically synced the selection here to the Solution Explorer. I can automatically turn that on I can have that turn on by default, so that when you change tabs, we'll automatically select the thing in Solution Explorer. That's in Tools Options. You can see I've got a little check here that indicates that we've got a pending change, which matches the fact that I've made changes to this file. If I click down here, this is our thing that we added in 2015. There's a status bar to quickly, if you use Git a lot, we can switch branches using this thing here. This gives you talks about the repo that you're on. This tells you how many pending changes you have, and this is telling you how many unpushed changes you've got. So changes that are local only. We've got no local changes. We have 4 pending changes. So if I click the pending changes, it brings up this Team Explorer. Drag here. Now, another thing I can do is inside Solution Explorer, I can actually filter by pending changes. So here we'll only show the changes that are pending, or we'll also do an open file filter. So only show the files that are open. Just unselect that. Okay, so we've got some changes here. It looks like we've got some unneeded changes, so why don't we remove them. Okay, so we'll commit these. So fix tests, commit all, save yes. Okay, and you'll see now that we have one unpushed commit that's not in my remote. Another thing you can do is in Team Explorer, if you use Team Explorer a lot, I do, not a lot of people do, but if you do, you can tear off these windows like so. So now I can have my branches and my changes open up at one time. I have 2 big giant 30-inch monitors, so I try and make use of it as much as I possibly can, and I can keep undocking and have all the windows that I want open. So let's recap what we just saw. You can track active document in Solution Explorer, which has a shortcut. You can there's also a shortcut for the pending changes filter and the open file filter in Solution Explorer. We added status bar for quick actions in VS 2015. We can tear off commonly used pages, and we also, in 15.8, we've also made huge performance changes to the way that Git integration works with inside VS. We now no longer do a blocking checkout. We'll check out in the background, and then VS itself will handle those changes better, so it will run less work while things are running until the whole branch is checked out. We're also going to be making changes to most of the source control operations, both command line and inside VS. So VS will react better to those. Okay, so we've committed that. Why don't we go looking for some work to do? So there's a type that I want to look up, or a method that I want to look up, so I'm going to use my go to all, which is Ctrl+T. This is basically your one-stop shop for finding stuff inside VS. It finds lines, symbols, files, types, members, and so forth. It has short. I can, if I'm looking for a type, for example, I can type T for type, and you'll see that we automatically filtered to type, and type device. Or I can say member, like this. This is the one I want to type. So you can see that we've already automatically filtered them to members. We also have shortcuts to go directly to those things if you'd like. This is really hard on it. I'm going to use the keyboard. Or not. Like so. You can change them, and you can also change them to reshuffle bindings if you'd like. Okay, so one thing I can do here is we have fuzzy matching and we also have prefix matching, so I can say on item clicked. That's the thing that I want to look for, and you can see that we've matched on the prefixes. This is the one I'm interested in. Now I want to turn off live unit testing because I don't want it to remind me that I have 0 coverage for this. Okay, so I come down here. I've got this if statement. Now this is kind of backwards to the way that I would normally write if statements. So if I want to invert it, I can do something like so. Go back and forth. If I scroll down, I have this sync property method. Now I want to make changes to the sync property method, but before I do, I want to figure out the call list to this. So I have a couple of different ways of doing it. I can drop down this, use code lens to find the callers. I can do my usual find all references, Ctrl+K. Now this is a new window that we rewrote in 2017. We let you change the grouping. So if you want a flat set of items like so, you can choose no grouping. I prefer to group by project and definition. I can also filter this, as with lots of windows we have filters to the current project or current document, just to kind of keep things in if you're doing a large refactoring. Another thing if you're doing a large refactoring is that you want to keep results around. So by default, if I do a find all refs here, we'll replace the existing results with that new ref. But if I want to keep those results, I click keep results. So find all refs, and we now have 2 windows, and you can keep doing that, and we'll just keep opening new windows forever. Okay, so if I go back to sync property, I can see the callers are only in this class, so I'm okay with changing this. Now if I have a look at this, I have this enum here, and what we're doing is we're doing a bunch of if statements on this enum, which is not something that's kind of a fairly strange coding pattern. Why don't we switch this to a switch, like so. So we automatically turn that set of if statements into a switch for you. Now you can see, when I was on the line, you can see this little screwdriver here. This indicates that we have some refactorings available for you. So if I convert to a switch, you'll see that it's changed to a light bulb. Light bulb means that there's probably work that you need to do. So there's a light. So if I drop down the light bulb, and I can see, hey, I'm missing cases. I've got a literal bug here, which is I'm not handling one case, which is the image case. So why don't I remember how to fix this? Image equals command dot button, I think. Image. Like so. Okay. Okay. And so just by converting it to a switch, it immediately saw that I had some missing cases. Okay, so let's just recap what we saw. We saw go to all, which is Ctrl+T or Control-, that's your one-stop shop for finding stuff around the tree. Find all references. We have the filter and the group by, and the new keep results button to keep results around. And we saw just a few of the new refactorings that we added, which is convert to switch and add missing cases and invert if. Okay. So let me go to some code. Okay, so I have this tree here. I have some unused namespaces here, which we grey out. We have an IO. We have. Oh, actually, before I do that, we also have these 3 little dots. I don't know if you can you see those 3 little dots? This indicates that there's some code style things. There's a code style warning here or something that I need to fix, something against my code style. So I'm kind of not a big fan of var. So I've turned off var on this repro. So if I Ctrl+, you can Ctrl+, you can see that it's asking me to change this to the explicit type. So I can enforce this a variety of ways. So I can go into Tools Options and say Code Style. So on my machine, we have a set of rules here that we're adding to every release, where I can dictate how I want my or how I want my settings. So for example, my var preferences prefer explicit type, so I've set that. I've said it's a suggestion. Suggestion means that you get the ... in the editor. It also means that you get in the error list, there's a messages tab that these will show up in. I can also turn it as a warning or an error. Or if I don't want any enforcement of this, but I want VS to respect it in refactorings, and I choose the refactoring only. So if you say, I have a var preferences that I always use var, and we introduce a new variable as part of a refactoring, then we will respect that setting. Okay, so that's great for the machine. So this enforces for my machine. But if I'm in a team environment, I want to enforce this across the tree. So we worked with the editor config folks, embrace the editor config format, which is an open format, and we extended it to add code style rules for C# enforcement and VB enforcement. So if you look into this, my editor config here, I have a bunch of rules here. I've got some naming stuff, so choose the normal naming rules that we have. I've got my var settings dictated here, and I can change these across the machine. Now, editor config is a directory-based enforcement, so I can put it at the top of my tree. If I have different enforcement further down the tree, then I can drop a different editor config that overrides or changes those enforcements. So, for example, I have this interrupt directory. This is Win32 interrupt that I normally I don't care about the naming or any of the rules, so I just tell the editor config to turn off all the rules under here. So that's handy for that project that is that legacy project that no one wants to change and you don't want to enforce any rules. So if I open up the error list, you can see that some of these enforcements have started showing up in the error list. So we've got the messages here. So if I go to stream extensions and I filter to the current document, you can see that these dots are showing up here. Now I can fix these manually. So fix this by clicking once here or clicking the document to fix it across the document, project or solution, which is great. But sometimes, there's quite a few of these. There's one here and there's one here. And if I scroll down here, there's also some other things that I kind of normally go against my guidelines. So I prefer braces on the new line. I've got this cast here that I don't, that's not really needed. We grey it out because the cast, the type is object. And my usings are not sorted, and they're also, there's got some unused ones. So what I can do here is to clean them all up, I can just make use of our new feature in 15.8, which is format document. We've extended format document to enforce coding styles. So I can do a Ctrl+ED. And you can see we cleaned up all those documents in one sort of way. It's easier if you look at the diff. So rather than just cleaning up the formatting of the document, we now run code style based on enforcement that you either set on the machine or in editor config across the entire document. So you can see that all these things, it's changed. I've even said that my modifiers need to be in a particular order, and it's respected that, so forth. So this is new for 15.8. You'll get prompted the first time you format a document to change these settings. You can change them of what we enforce in here. So there's a bunch of things that we enforce, and we're adding more and more. For the moment, this runs on explicit ED or an explicit format document, but we're looking at extending it for on save and applying it across the entire solution in one big, or a repository in one big tray.
Can you preserve some usings?
There's no way to enforce that there are specific usings. Yes, you can say don't clean them up, but there's no way yet to enforce that. That sounds like a good suggestion to add to Rosalind.
Can you generate the editor config from your current Visual Studio configuration?
So using a new feature that we have in the future, yes, we have a new thing that we're working on that automatically generates an editor config. You can actually download it now, but yes, you will be able to generate it based on your repo. Yeah. And so the easiest way to do it is just copy some of the Microsoft teams, which are open source. We're all up to date on, Rosalind and the project system are up to date with all of the settings. So it's a good way to get started and then modify it. We're also going to be making changes to the editor of editor config to kind of give you IntelliSense, have a way to have that UI across over the editor config and so forth. So to kind of understand what's available and what's set and what's not set.
What about things like when it suggests var instead of int there, and you can open it up on the context menu and say, hey, actually I don't like that setting, and change it on the spot?
Yeah, so there's no way to change that on the spot yet. You can for some of the things we have this little button that says change options, but yeah, there's no link yet to say change it on the spot. But yes, they're thinking about those kind of things. This is my sister team. This is not my feature, but this is one of my sister teams. Right, so this,
Is there a list of all the names for the configs?
yes, there is. Yep, we have a very good docs on this, and I'll point to them at the end of the deck. We've got a nice little shortcut for it. Okay, so let's summarize what we saw. So we added code styles, which we're extending every release and adding new ones and enforcing braces. And if you have, if you're missing some, go to file them on Rosalind, which is open source, and you can add it to the list of things that you'd like to see enforced. We added editor config support really in 15.7. We added it for the editor for some settings in 15.6, but Rosalind implemented their support in 15.7. It works across the directory level. And we also added this new code cleanup via format document in 15.8, which automatically applies your code styles across the document.
Is it KD or ED?
Control. Oh, yeah, you're the first one to catch that. You're right. It's Control ED. Yeah, Control ED. It's usually a shortcut. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, what's KD? Why did I write KD? I don't know why I would have written that.
Depends on stuff.
Yeah, I use KD as well.
KD is just a format document.
What is it? It's under advanced. Yeah, maybe that's in some settings. Yeah.
Default Visual Studio is.
Okay. I have all my settings roam with me for many releases, so I may have changed it at one point or reset it or something, and yeah. Okay, so now let's go to the entire solution. Okay, we can see some other things that we're enforcing here that we've asked BS to enforce. So here's an example of, this is your normal event syntax invocation. You can now simplify that into that using some of the new C# features. The other thing that you can get is we can advertise your new features. So for example, this is a new language feature that we added back in 6 or 5, I can't remember, where you can simplify object initialization. Here's another one in C#7, this old cast, as cast, check for null pattern. We will now, there's a bug, so we're not showing it. Here's one that shows you another bug. This is why this is a preview. Let's go back to here. Nope, still not working. Okay, normally what would happen here is we'd show you the light bulb and we would tell you about, it would simplify this into the new pattern, which is audio tool strip menu item, tool strip item, like so. And now I can delete that. So that's in C#7. Whoops, e.item. And this one is, we can inline this, so I can grab this, inline it here. That's a bug, we formatted that, but, and still need the out, that's why we formatted it like that, yep. And so now we can, so it kind of teaches you about C#. What is this? It teaches you about some of the new language features. Now you can enforce these by editor config, so you can opt out of them. Here's an example. We've got this field here that we've detected that can be made read-only. It's only ever read from, never written to outside of the constructor, so I can do that. Now if I have a look at this class here, I can see this is something that I would normally put nested classes inside a new method, inside of a new class. So I can Ctrl+ that and have it move, like so. Some of the other changes we've made over the 2017 release is we now suggest your namespaces here, which is just a nice minor change that's kind of nice. Here we also do variable suggestion, so I can type list of address here, and we suggest addresses. Okay, that's pretty cool. Even better, what happens if I do something hard, like person? You wouldn't believe how hard it is to type on a Surface keyboard. And you can see that we've suggested people. We're using Humanizer and another open source library to make suggestions there. Okay, so quick summary of some of the things we saw. I just showed you a very brief view of some of the refactorings we added. We've added others like convert to link, convert to for each, convert to fors, many more that I'm not giving them justice. We're running out of time. And we also do some variable name suggestions. Okay, so that's giving you a quick overview of some of the new features that we've added in 2017. We've got a 2017 productivity guide that covers way more than that. I advise you that you read it. Take a screenshot of this now. These will that will cover a bunch more other things. It's targeted at .NET devs. If you have some performance issues, we've got a little link that shows you how to report them to us. We've got editor config code docs there that list every single option that we've added and in what release we added them, so you can see when they came along. And we have some refactoring docs as well. Okay, that was a quick run through. I'll take questions, and I've worked on a variety of things. So I've worked on CLR for many years. So if you have questions about CLR, or I can't answer web questions. The last web code that I wrote was 15 years ago, but
Auto discovery of extension methods. Can I tell you something?
so we will, if you type the extension method, we will suggest it. We were working on the ability to pull in extension methods and other types outside of the current usings that you have. But right now, we have the ability to, you type, say, select,
Yep.
control.add link.
Can we get rid of resharper at some point?
What was that?
Can we get rid of resharper at some point?
So if you're paying for ReSharper now and you don't want to be, try it for a day. Turn on the ReSharper schema to make sure that keyboard shortcuts work. Give us feedback on why if you felt that you had to switch back to ReSharper. ReSharper is great. They're working on, I know every time I've done this, people have talked about performance issues, but they're working on their performance issues. We've been working with them on giving them data on where they're slowing down. So if you go onto the ReSharper blog, you can see that they're doing a performance series on fixing all the performance issues and how to investigate them. So yeah, we're working with them on perf. But if you want to use ReSharper, we love ReSharper. So.
Is there any chance that we will see formatting in something like .NET FMT?
That's something else. Yeah, the question was, are we going to see a command line experience for the format?
Well, yes.
That's something we're